tonight on KPBS Evening Edition. A plan to improve mass transit on El Cajon Boulevard. The city will dedicate special lanes for buses. We'll show you where traffic will be affected. And a decision is coming on what to do with Horton Plaza, how the city is finalizing a plan to transform the downtown mall.
The haves and have-nots is manifesting record number of homeless. People can't afford to live here. We got to get serious about our housing issues.
Governor Gavin Newsom talks about his plans for housing and how it fits into his budget.
We have a lot of people that come to the concerts that are moved to tears and that they're caught off guard by that.
And we'll hear a preview of a special performance happening this weekend by the San Diego Women's Chorus. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Friday, May 17th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Plans for a bus-only lane on a busy stretch of El Cajon Boulevard are moving forward. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar shows us the neighborhoods that will be impacted.
Ebony, we're talking about a 2.7-mile stretch of El Cajon Boulevard that runs through North Park and City Heights. Take a look at this map. You can see the plan is to create a bus-only lane that would run in both directions from Park Boulevard to Fairmont Avenue. City Council members Chris Ward and Georgette Gomez requested the change, and Mayor Kevin Faulconer gave his approval last week. It's important to note that this would be a pilot program, which means it would just be a test. The El Cajon Boulevard Business Improvement Association helped write the proposal for the project. They told me they expect the lane to open in the late summer or early fall and last for around 3 months.
We're definitely hoping that the commute time is shorter. That should be improved when you roll out a pilot that is almost 3 miles long. We really should see significant difference in that. That will also warrant investment in higher frequency, so more buses coming up and down El Cajon Boulevard. At this point in time, I think during peak hours, it's about every 10 minutes. It's been described that 7 minutes is the peak, sort of the sweet spot, if you will, that people don't question when the bus is going to come. They just naturally go out there. So all these things, it's just going to look, it's going to be an iconic project when you see that type of, dedicated lane.
The full City Council is expected to vote on the program in the coming weeks. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
The bus lane project runs through North Park, and that's where Mayor Kevin Faulconer wants to add protected bike lanes on a major street. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the change will come over the next year.
Released a memo Thursday evening directing city staffers to create new protected bike lanes on 30th Street. City crews are replacing a pipeline underneath 30th. After that's finished and the street is repaved, they'll remove on-street parking and turn that space over to cyclists. Faulconer's memo says reducing the city's reliance on cars is critical to addressing climate change and improving street safety. Some residents had called for no parking loss, but the neighborhood planning group this week voted to support the removal of parking because it would create the safest and most comfortable lane for cyclists. The mayor's decision is noteworthy. In the past, concerns over parking loss have delayed, derailed, or watered down plans for bike lanes. But Faulconer has become increasingly bold on this and other controversial issues as he approaches the end of his term next year. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Senate President Toni Atkins says she won't step in to force a vote on a major housing bill. SB 50 was put on hold this week by its committee. It would allow the state to approve higher density housing near transit centers. Atkins gave a statement to KPBS. She says, to be clear, the bill is not dead, and this is the first year of a 2-year session. Short of significantly amending the bill and limiting its applications in large swaths of the state, there was no path to move forward this year. Governor Gavin Newsom will visit San Diego this weekend. It will be the final stop on a statewide tour. He's generating support for a change to his spending plan that would require all Californians buy health insurance or pay a penalty. He recently talked about the budget, Senate Bill 50, and the police use of force bill, authored by San Diego Assemblywoman Shirley Weber with KQED's Scott Schaefer.
Governor Newsom, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
The budget you released at the state capitol is $4 billion or so larger than the one in January, money for fire prevention, homelessness, other things. Are there things you would have actually liked to include that you didn't, either because of lack of revenue or political pushback from the legislature or elsewhere?
I mean, obviously, we need to do a lot more on K through 12 public education investment, a lot more on teacher training, teacher retention, teacher pay, special education. That said, we put an historic amount of money into special education and teacher training. We put close to $700 million of new money for special ed, $150 million for teacher training, but it's still a modest amount considering the totality. Second, look, I'd love to move forward more expeditiously with universal health care. We have the capacity to do more than any other state. This budget reflects that. But obviously, it's going to take a few more years to truly have the resources, which are in the multiple billions of dollars, to ultimately achieve that goal and ultimately advance the real goal, which is changing our financing to a single-payer financing framework.
On your housing proposal, you acknowledge that some of the critics say your goals are a little too audacious. Do you feel like you may have to scale that back a bit?
Our goals in housing have been pathetically modest, and we've reached some of them. The fact is we're producing less than 100,000 housing units a year. We need to be producing close to 300,000 to 400,000 to address the price imbalance or demand and price imbalance. That said, I want to be realistic, but at the same time I want to be audacious. So we'll amend them. We've got a regional strategy that we've laid out, $1.75 billion in the budget for housing. In that regional strategy is identifying new numbers, what we call RENA goals, and those numbers come in, we'll update our statewide goals.
State Senator Scott Wiener, as you know, is coming back again, this time with SB 50 to encourage more high-density housing, especially around job centers and transit hubs. A lot of pushback on that as well. It's already been amended to exclude, to a certain extent, counties like Sonoma, more rural counties. There also is concern at the local level about overreach, state overreach, and trying to dictate to the local governments. As a former mayor, now governor, is that concern legitimate?
Yeah, I think the concern is legitimate, but let me just express this. There's a bigger concern. That's the status quo. California dream is quite literally in peril. I listen to the folks on the far right criticize the state. In one respect, they're right. The middle class are getting squeezed. The haves and have-nots is manifesting a record number of homeless. People can't afford to live here. We got to get serious about our housing issues, and we just simply can't put up with the excuses and with respect, sometimes I'll say it, the NIMBYism that marks our politics, and we all have to row together. And so, look, I appreciate what Scott's trying to do, Senator Wiener. We'll see where that bill ends up and see if it even lands on my desk. But I really appreciate him inspiring a debate anew. And the state, you're right, shouldn't have to do this, but it's in the absence of real local leadership at scale that obviously forces our hand in Sacramento to try to do something novel, something different.
Question about police accountability. There are two competing bills in the legislature right now, one supported by police unions that calls for more training, another supported by the ACLU and other groups that calls for more accountability and sort of holding police officers accountable when there's deadly force and it's not just in self-defense. Where do you fall on that, on those two competing measures?
Let me answer it this way. Number one, it's important because it's relevant. Our budget reflects a record amount of money for training, police training, what we call our POST program. That's an important enhancement in the budget. Number two, I'm trying to do my best to get the parties together. I've got a key staff member who's working, I don't think it's exaggerating, full-time, literally, on just this topic. There are good people of goodwill on all sides that are working, I think, collaboratively to see if it is possible to find some compromise.
There's also a dispute over whether a bill passed and signed last year on transparency and release of police personnel records is retroactive or not. The Attorney General, Javier Becerra, is taking the position, at least for now, that it is not retroactive. What is your position? Do you agree with where the Attorney General is right now, or would you like to see those personnel records released soon?
Deep respect for the Attorney General. He's a friend, and I don't just say that in political terms. He's a friend personally, and I have great respect and admiration for him from a policy and political perspective. We put out a memo. It contrasts a bit with the Attorney General's position. We believe the law allows for retroactivity.
All right. Governor Gavin Newsom, thank you so much for joining us.
Grateful. Thank you.
People are once again banned from living in their cars on San Diego city streets. the surge in deaths of homeless people on San Diego streets, and struggles facing asylum seekers waiting in Mexico for court hearings in the U.S. Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
Work could soon begin to transform downtown San Diego's Horton Plaza into a high-tech office complex. KPBS reporter John Carroll says the city council is scheduled to vote on the new plan on Monday.
When Horton Plaza opened in 1985, it was the first sign of rebirth in downtown San Diego. But over the last few years, more and more retailers have left. If the City Council approves this new proposal on Monday, that will change in a big way. These artist renderings that you're going to see show what it could look like. The $275 million plan from Stockdale Capital Partners would change the mall into a high-tech office complex. The developer says the new campus at Horton would create 4,000 high-paying tech jobs spread throughout 700,000 square feet of office space. The goal is to keep some of the current stores and maybe some new ones as part of the new development. If the City Council approves the proposal, the developer hopes to complete the first phase by late 2020. John Carroll, KPBS News.
San Diego-based Jack in the Box has given up the search for a buyer. The company has taken itself off the market, reportedly deciding to refinance its debt instead. We're talking about that, plus other headline-making business news for this week's Friday Business Report with Muriel Kopik from SDSU and Bottom Line Marketing. So, Muriel, why was Jack in the Box a West Coast favorite looking for a buyer in the first place?
Well, Jack in the Box is a national platform. They've got 2,200 locations, but they're tiny compared to McDonald's or Burger King. They were starting to struggle. Their same-store sales were declining. They have activist shareholders who are against management. For the first time, all franchisees are against the new CEO's policies. So it forced the board to look at strategic alternatives, potentially find a buyer, and it looks like they didn't find one, or at least no one gave them a bid that was attractive enough. And so they're going to refinance their business. And
will this help? Refinancing?
You know, refinancing will, because, you know, their performance over the last 6 months has been relatively flat. And what they're going to do, it's just think about if you're refinancing your mortgage, you might add a little bit more because you want to put on that new patio or build that pool. They're going to do the same thing. They're going to offer the securitized debt to investors. They're going to take out their current loans, and they're going to raise a little extra money to either pay for marketing, pay for better operations, or maybe buy back shares to get rid of those activist investors.
So next up, AT&T plans to lay off technicians here in California, more than 100 in San Diego. What happened to the company's pledge back in 2017 to create thousands of new positions?
You know, it's really interesting. They made this pledge when the Tax Cut Act was enacted. A lot of companies did. AT&T is really struggling as a company. So the technicians that they're talking about are people who work on DirecTV or slower DSL type internet services. The demands for those services are declining. So DirecTV is really struggling with DirecTV, with their long distance business. So all these technicians need to find new jobs. It's unfortunate. It's a highly competitive environment. Even their cell phone business, which is very successful, the growth is slowing. So I know that they made this pledge. They've actually cut 23,000 jobs. And hopefully as they reframe themselves as a company, they'll be more competitive. But two things that they've done. One is they still pay a very healthy dividend, so they could save some of that money and adjust and invest in the business. And then secondly, they got over $20 billion in tax relief. They bought back a lot of shares, and some of that money went to actually investing in new technology. So that's kind of the status with AT&T.
And finally, the trade war between the U.S. and China continues. Farmers say that they're hurting. Car makers say they're hurting. If this continues, which industries stand to lose the most?
Well, it's interesting. Every industry is going to lose. And here's why. You know, we talked about last week that the president extended tariffs on $200 billion worth of goods last Friday. On Monday, he announced that he was ready to put on 25% tariffs on the remaining $300 billion in trade. That means everything from apparel to handbags to hats to cars to computers are going to cost more. In fact, this week, the markets have been crazy. The market plunged over 600 points on Monday, but because corporate earnings have been fairly strong, the market has staged a rally this week. But they're very concerned about what the next round of negotiations are going to be.
Muriel Kopik with SDSU and Bottom Line Marketing, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ebony.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, thousands march in Hong Kong to protest a new law that stokes fear it will silence critics of China's government. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
You might have been talking over the past few days all about those pesky winds, and if you went to the higher elevations, this is what you found. Wind gusts of more than 60 miles per hour. Wow, just impressive. Closer to where everyone lives, most of those wind gusts were between 30 to maybe 45 miles per hour. Still pesky enough. The good news is the winds will be dying down as this whole storm system moves off towards the east, and it is doing just that. It is pushing its way through Nevada, Utah, and will create some mountain snows into Colorado. So as we get rid of the system, I just want to take a look back at May so far. We're about halfway through. We've picked up almost a half an inch of rain. When you think about it, the entire month we should only have 0.12 of an inch of rain, so we are well above normal for the month of May. And guess what? There's more rain chances as we go through the days to come. Now tonight, we become mostly cloudy. We'll see those winds die down, and temperatures, they're going to be in the upper 50s. So we're going to stay quiet throughout the nighttime hours. 43 for Ramona as you head towards Borrego Springs, 58 for that low. 51 in Oceanside, and in Chula Vista we'll be back into the mid-50s. No big problems tonight and tomorrow. High pressure and control, dry, starting to warm up through the interior, and the coast pretty cool and comfortable. Futurecast showing there's really not much going on through your Saturday. Just some of those morning clouds to start off with, then we get more afternoon sunshine. So no big problems out there. As you can see, Escondido 72 and partly sunny throughout the day, working our way then into places like San Diego, 69 for that high. Mount Laguna coming in the upper 50s. So not a bad setup for us as we head into the start of the weekend. The later part of the weekend will change. Notice there's a lot of severe weather into the middle part of the country, but this next storm system comes working in and it will create some wet weather. So Sunday is going to be a wet day here for the coast, and it's not wet. There will be a couple of showers around, temperatures in the mid-60s. As we head inland, notice we start our weekend in the 70s, fall to the mid-60s with some of those showers, working through maybe the deserts. Big temperature change here, but not too much in the way of rainfall from mid-80s to the mid-70s on Sunday. And the mountains, we also will see a bit of a cool down, maybe a stray shower too if we venture through parts of Sunday evening. For KPBS, I'm meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
In Oakland today, people trying to prevent new border wall construction in California argued their case. The lawsuit was filed after President Trump ordered a national emergency to free up billions of dollars in military money for the project. A decision is expected next week. Lawyers for the ACLU and the Sierra Club spoke after the hearing.
We're asking for an order blocking the use of these funds that Congress didn't appropriate to build a wall on the border. It's very simple. They didn't get the money for it. They can't build it. That's why we had a shutdown, and nothing has changed since the shutdown. They didn't get the money to build it. They can't start building it now.
Sierra Club members are dedicated to protecting fragile ecosystems and long-standing communities on the southern border, and obviously building a 1,500-mile contiguous wall is certainly not going to help us in that endeavor. You know, there's many people that live all along the border who are threatened by this wall, and that's what our lawsuit's about.
Border Patrol says migrants who enter the U.S. illegally will be brought to San Diego for processing. It's being done to relieve overcrowding at detention facilities in Texas. San Diego's Border Patrol chief says hundreds of migrants will end up in San Diego, most of them family units. They will be processed in Otay Mesa. Customs and Border Protection says the Texas facility is 200% over capacity. Taiwan is now the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage. Thousands of people demonstrated outside the capital as lawmakers cast their vote. The LGBT advocacy group Human Rights Watch says it hopes other nations will follow. Thailand is considering a plan to allow same-sex civil partnerships. Same-sex marriages will begin in Taiwan later this month. Here in the U.S., Congress is trying to extend civil rights protections to LGBT people. Today, the House passed the Equality Act. 8 Republicans joined all Democrats to approve the bill. It would ban discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity when it comes to employment, housing, loan applications, education, and other areas.
If we pass the Equality Act, people like Phil and I can be free to love who we love, and we can live where we want to live, and we can work where we want to work without being fired or evicted simply because of who we are or who we love. That's pretty simple, pretty normal, pretty American.
I rise today in strong opposition to H.R. 5, a deceptively named bill that is anything but equalizing. In fact, this bill legalizes discrimination. Government-imposed top-down discrimination against those with time-honored views of marriage and gender.
173 House Republicans voted against the Equality Act. President Trump is expected to veto the bill if it is approved by the Senate. This weekend, the San Diego Women's Chorus presents Quiet No More, a choral celebration of Stonewall. They recently gave KPBS a preview of their show that marks 50 years since an important moment in the gay rights movement.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Hansen. I'm the artistic director of the San Diego Women's Chorus. This weekend, we're going to be premiering in San Diego Quiet No More, a choral celebration of Stonewall, which acknowledges and celebrates the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising in New York. I'm here with members of the San Diego Women's Chorus to give you a little sample of what we'll be singing this weekend.
We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, those who have fallen, those who have fallen. We are here in the memory of those who have fallen, here for the courage to be who we are, courage to be who we are.
The San Diego Women's Chorus is a lesbian feminist identified chorus that's been around for over 30 years. And our mission, in part, is to inspire social action.
Those who have fallen.
The Women's Chorus always has a purpose. We're not just singing, we're really a sisterhood connected through song. In our mission statement, we say, come for the music and stay for the heart.
If you look back at all of the important social movements, they were surrounded by music. You look at civil rights and you think of We Shall Overcome. One of the pieces that we'll be singing is Beatles' Revolution. I think that it allows people to express things that they don't otherwise have a way to express. Sometimes we get angry and yell, and yelling doesn't always serve the right purpose. But if we can inspire people, if we can open people's hearts, if we can touch their souls through music, I think it's a way to humanize each other.
Courage to be who we are.
Music and song really brings people together in a way that nothing else does. You know, a written piece or, I don't know, a piece of art, something like that, all have their place, but music touches people in their soul. And we have a lot of people that come to the concerts that are moved to tears and that they're caught off guard by that.
Courage to be who we are. Courage to be who we are.
And so delivering a piece like this is very moving on many levels, but it really brings you back to, wow, we are so thankful and grateful to be where we are now because of these people and what they did to fight for our rights. But we do still need to take to the streets and make sure that we're continuing that action.
I hope that people will be appreciative of the history of Stonewall, appreciative of those who have stood up in the past. Some have put their lives on the line to bring about revolution, to bring about acceptance. I also hope that people will feel that they should stand up for each other. I hope that people will feel the need to take action, that people will reach across, meet new people, understand other people, vote, all of those things.
Quiet No More will be performed Saturday and Sunday at the Lincoln High School Center for Performing Arts. Now here's a recap of tonight's top stories. The city of San Diego will try out special bus lanes along El Cajon Boulevard. The lanes would run in both directions from Park Boulevard to Fairmont Avenue. That's about a 3-mile stretch. The new lanes are expected to be in place by late summer. Protected bike lanes are coming to North Park. Mayor Kevin Faulconer has ordered city staffers to begin work along a stretch of 30th Street. On-street parking will be removed to provide lanes for cyclists. The City Council will vote Monday on a proposal to redesign Horton Plaza. The owners of the property want to turn it into a new office complex for tech companies. Some of the current stores would be included in the new project. The developer hopes to complete the first phase by next year. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. And we end the show tonight with one more from the San Diego Women's Chorus. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.
Lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. No, the other one. One foot in front of the other and lead with love. And lead with love. And lead.